Well, last week saw the narrow defeat in the South Australian Parliament of a bill that would have made it illegal to lethally inject babies post 28 weeks in the womb. Now, let me just say that again because I think a lot of people would be unaware that this was going on. Under Australia's abortion to birth laws, a common method of late-term abortion is to give a lethal injection through the mother's abdomen into the baby's heart so a dead baby is delivered after an induced labour. The South Australian bill put forward by Liberal Upper House member Ben Hood, who I had on this program about 3 weeks ago, terrific fellow, the Hood bill would have banned this practice and required the induced baby to be born alive, at which point he or she could be put up for adoption. The bill would not have impinged on a woman's right to choose. It just meant instead of inducing labour of a dead baby, the lethal injection would be skipped and the baby given the chance to live. Now, this is because a baby is viable outside the womb at 28 weeks. In fact, they're routinely saved in our neonatal units as young as 22 weeks and possibly younger. Now, Family First, the party which I'm a part of, strongly supported the bill, and its loss by a single vote reinforces the urgent need for pro-life candidates like those that Family First would offer to be elected at the 2026 election in South Australia and also at other elections around the nation. It's important to recognise that as hard as we and so many other great pro-life people tried, we were not able to convince a majority of the members of the Legislative Council in South Australia to support last week's bill. Sadly, the public remain ignorant of the Hood bill as the mainstream media failed to focus on the truth of it and simply typecast it as a threat to women's healthcare. Now, the ABC's State Line program are probably the worst at this, and in South Australia they interviewed a woman who had a late-term abortion in July of last year to get her reaction to the changes proposed by the Hood bill.
You said that you, as soon as you found out you were pregnant, you knew that you were going to have a termination.
Yeah.
What was happening in your life that made you have that initial thought?
So I am a single mum and I have a little boy who is 8 now, and he was 6 at the time. He has disabilities and all parents know that parenting is hard, but when you have a disabled child, it's another level of difficulty. And I try to do the best I can for him. And I knew that bringing in a newborn was going to be very rough.
Now, Tanya, the woman giving that interview, goes on to say that she was homeless at the time and staying with friends. Now, joining me now to discuss this is Jodie Pickard of Love Australia, the organiser of the big annual pro-life demonstrations in Adelaide and Sydney. Jodie, thanks so much for your time. Before we unpack Tanya's tragic circumstances, would you mind telling our audience what you've told me off air about your own personal experience and the relevance of that to this very sad case?
Well, thanks for having me on again, Lyle. Yes, it's very close to home for myself and my family because in between my 2 living children, we actually had a son who was stillborn, and he was stillborn at 37 weeks. To this day, we don't know why he died. But delivering a baby stillborn is something that no one would ever want to do, and really never, we get over it in different ways. To be honest, it wasn't until I found my faith in Jesus that I actually came to terms with the grief and the loss, and I was able to let it go because I just had complete assurance about where he was. But it's so it is such a heavy burden to actually have your child, hold your child dead. I don't know if this dear lady got to see her baby. My heart breaks for her, listening to her story. It really does. I was absolutely heartbroken listening to her speak. But I went on, after getting some support, at the time my husband and I went to an organisation called SANS, which is Stillbirth and Neonatal Death Support. And we went there for, a number of years, and it's peer-to-peer support of other bereaved parents just supporting other bereaved parents who are further down the track. to give them hope that, there is a way forward in this tragic grief that is just all-consuming. So I ended up going back in as a support worker for about 10 years. So I've sat with hundreds of families who have had stillborn babies. So my experience is quite extensive, obviously.
Well, Jodie, thank you for sharing that. We want to unpack a little bit more of Tanya's story. Let's have a look at the next clip from State Line.
I don't think I would still be here today if I had had that baby. It would have been so bad for my mental health. I truly don't think I would be here.
Jodie, what's become of us as a society when a woman like Tanya finds herself in a position where the father of the baby, other family and community members have left her so vulnerable that she is essentially saying that if she can't get a late-term abortion at 24 weeks, that she might die? I think that's what she's saying there, presumably perhaps by suicide even.
That's the part that just broke my heart. I thought we have let her down on every level. I mean, she needed support. She needed support before. She needed support during and after, and she still needs support. And so this level of support should be available in a beautiful nation like Australia. And I believe it is there, but the information is not getting through to people who are this vulnerable. And so I feel like this idea that we have to affirm at every stage of somebody's decision making, we're seeing it in other areas of trauma as well with our kids. But in this instance, she has shared where she's at and expressed that she doesn't think she's going to be able to cope. And without being in the room, obviously we don't have all the answers, but I believe that she was affirmed in that. And I don't know what sort of support was ever offered to her. I don't know if even to this day she knows what support is available. And even now for her disabled son. But also now I hope that she realises that there is support even now for her to be able to come to terms and deal with the grief of what's happened with her baby's death.
Well, Jodie, you raised some really good points there. I mean, you would have thought that if the ABC's Stephanie Richards was doing her job, she would have asked questions about what alternatives did you have to, killing a baby at such a late stage of gestation. Let's have a look at the next clip.
You found out you're 24 weeks pregnant. You were seeking a pregnancy termination. What happened?
Once that was, the hospital and the midwives were found, the next process was booking in for a twilight anaesthetic the day before to, I'm not really sure what it's called. It was an injection through my abdomen into the uterus to stop the heartbeat and stop the pregnancy. And then the next day, first thing in the morning, went to the Women's and Children's to get checked in, and that's when the process to induce me started to start my labour.
Now, Jodie, at the start you shared your experience of having a baby die in utero. You didn't know the cause of that. Here we've got Tanya describing how her baby died. I mean, this is quite confronting, isn't it?
Oh, it's very confronting, and just the way that she's. I just think that she's needing to have all of her defences up to be able to even cope with that, and to say that without being emotionally just destroyed in the truth of it, or even, and I feel so sad because she's only 2 years in from her baby dying, and from my experience, anyone who's only 2 years in from their baby's dying, certainly in an interview or anything like that, we don't get through our testimonies. Like, I've sat with hundreds of people, and when I say we don't get through it, we get through it, but we get through it with tears. And I feel like she's not even being able to grieve her baby now, that she has to have this narrative that, it was her choice and she's okay with it. And I'm very concerned for her into the future. I really pray that she can find a good counsellor and find a way through to be able to actually speak about it and grieve this precious baby.
Well, what's even more extraordinary is that State Line then, use her to make a political point. Here's the next clip.
Ben Hood's private members bill gets up. Someone in your position would have to deliver the fetus alive, the baby alive. as opposed to as a stillborn.
Yeah.
What difference do you think that would have made for you?
It makes me really sad to think about it if the bill gets through, but also really angry because I don't think that this bill is a solution to a real problem. I think it's creating a problem because nobody's getting a late-term abortion for convenience. It has to be deemed medically necessary.
Now, Jodie, is this ethical reporting by the ABC? Should Stephanie Richards have challenged Tanya's assumption that the only way forward for her was for her to kill her baby the way that she described earlier?
I don't think it's ethical at all. I feel like she was leading her in those statements to be able to come to the conclusion that they wanted to bring forward, which it was against this bill. Even in her own admission, she was 24 weeks. So as horrible as this is, she actually, even with this bill, would still actually have been able to have that termination. So obviously they couldn't find somebody post 28 weeks who was willing to share their story. Otherwise, I'm sure they would have gone there on that one. But yes, once again, she is caught up in a very... I think the emotion is just so huge that she's had to push it down into her soul to be able to cope. And then this is giving her an opportunity to have that affirmed, that the decision she made was the right decision. That's the only reason I can think of that someone would want to share such a private thing.
It's not even clear, Jodie, that there was a medical reason why she needed to kill what would seem to be a healthy baby at such a late stage of gestation. I don't think we should be killing any babies at any stage of gestation. That's my pro-life view. But I think most Australians would recoil, and certainly secular polling shows that Australians do not support late-term abortions. Yet Tanya is saying, she uses the word convenience. I don't want to say that's why she did it, but it doesn't seem like there was a compelling medical reason.
No, the medical... I don't know what was going through her thinking, but I feel like she didn't have... I don't think she was probably able to unpack the whole thing. Because I'm wondering in her mind whether she, in some ways, was thinking if this baby lives, well then basically I won't and my child won't. So it was almost a choice of which way we can go here. But that is, in Australia, we've got such great support. I mean, we don't have to make a choice like that. We really don't. The support, we've just let her down on every level as far as being able to offer support because never is the answer to deliver a stillborn baby.
Yeah, and that's the tragedy of this debate. When you get that sort of reporting by the ABC that's so one-sided, as if the only option is for late-term abortion to exist in law and for that sort of horrific circumstances of aborting a baby to be allowed legally. Jodie, thank you for helping us just see through some of the ABC's misrepresentation. I'm sure with better debate we'll get better public policy, but that might be further down the track. Appreciate your time today.
It's my pleasure. Thank you.
Well, if what you've just seen or heard has caused any concern for you whatsoever, please make sure you avail yourself of help that is available. There's Beyond Blue and Lifeline. The numbers are on your screen.